Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome, this is your host, Ma'awitaka. And here we are continuing on our series, Prophetic Chronicles, where we discuss the lives of the prophets, beginning from Adam alayhi salam, all the way to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Hopefully we're going to take benefit from their lives, extract understanding about the history of our prophets, and help us to give a greater understanding of the message of al-Islam, which is the message of Tawheed. So we've covered the prophets from the beginning up to the time of Ibrahim, and we were focusing on the children of Ibrahim and Ishaq and Yaqub, i.e. the children of Israel. And we spoke about how Yaqub and his family migrated to Egypt and how they were returned after the encounter with Fir'aun back to Bayt al-Maqdis. And when they returned, they established a government, a kingship on Tawheed, on al-Islam. And it had three separate cycles. The first cycle with Yusha ibn Nun, and then it declined, and then with Dawood and Sulaiman, and then it declined, and then after the destruction of Prophet Jeremiah, after that, about 100 years after that, it got re-established again, and then we had further decline, where we got to where the Romans had now taken over Bayt al-Maqdis, and this is now coming to the end of the story of the prophets with the children of Israel. As Allah mentioned in the Quran, that said, Allah mentioned speaking to Bani Israel, talking directly to Bani Israel, saying that Allah has favored them over all the alameen. And we can see already from this story that although prophets are sent to many nations, we have a large chunk of the story revolving around the children of Israel, of Yaqub. So they were blessed and given so many benefits, so many chances, so many opportunities from Allah, that now we have the final messenger, Isa alayhi salam, the final one to be born from the children of Israel, sent to them, calling them back to the worship of Allah and obedience to Allah's Sharia, informing them that which is of new information from the Injil given to him, and reinforcing that with miracles upon miracles upon miracles, with Isa himself being miraculous. Yet we still find rejection. But we shouldn't be surprised, to be honest, because we've seen rejection. Well, we've seen this characteristic of rejecting the truth that has come to a people who have spent generations going further and further away from the truth. And what's unique about Bani Israel is that with other nations, they distanced themselves or they departed from the truth whilst having no one with them. With Bani Israel, however, they departed from the truth whilst constantly having prophets with them, to the point where they even imprisoned their own prophets, like Jeremiah was imprisoned. So we see here that their level of rejection had gone overboard. It wasn't just people who didn't believe in someone who claimed to be a prophet. These were people who understood the meaning of having prophets sent to them, understood the message, even having the Torah with them, but yet they still rejected the message. So what did they do in the past? They killed their Anbiya. What do you reckon they're going to do with Isa? They're going to try and kill him as well. So what did they do? Because they had no authority in the land like they had at the time of Jeremiah, they conspired with the Romans. They went to the kuffar, and they went to work with the kuffar against Isa alayhi salam. Subhanallah. How evil is that, to go and work with the enemies of Allah against the Nabi of Allah? Subhanallah. But why would the Romans get involved? This is one of the questions that some people mention. Why would the Romans care about the Jews having some prophet? I mean, whatever, you do your thing, we're in charge, whatever the case may be. But what was the case here? What was said that they went to the Romans with, is they said that this person claims to be the king of the Jews. Now, that statement, claims to be the king of the Jews, sounds a bit arbitrary, but if you look into context of the history of Bani Israel, we had three separate kingdoms. All three kingdoms had a decline, and all three kingdoms had returned back to Islam with someone who claimed to be a Nabi. With the first one, Yusha ibn Nun. Then we had Shemuel, who brought Talut, and after we had Jeremiah. So we see here a connection where there was a revival back to a new kingdom. So now the Romans are interested. Is this going to be another revolt? Is this person going to rally the children of Israel or the Jews together and cause another fight, and then we have to go to war? Now they're concerned. Now they want to know, who's this person? They're not interested in religion, but they are interested in politics. And this was the basis for their claim. This was the basis for their instigation against Isa. So they managed to rally up the Romans. They sent their guards to go and arrest Isa. And apparently some of the rabbis were with them to go and obviously point him out, because they don't know who he is, but they know who he is. And as they went to his home, they arrested, they took him to prison, tortured, and eventually made the person carry the cross, as it always said, and then crucified this individual. And it was even said, Allah knows best, it was said that as part of the crucifixion, because crucifixion basically means when your hands and feet are hammered onto a rock and onto a piece of plank of wood, and you are hung. And it was said that after that was done, then stabbed in the chest and caused to die. This was what was narrated, and this was what happened. But what really happened? When it comes to the story of Isa alayhi salam, Allah has made it very clear, absolutely clear, what really happened. So although an attempt was made against Isa, as Allah tells us, وَمَكَرُوا مَكَرَ اللَّهِ, and they plotted, but Allah plots, Allah is best of those who plots. So they made a plot against Isa, but Allah thwarted and outdone their plots. How did Allah do so? Allah mentioned they did not kill him, as in Isa, and they did not crucify him, but shubbiha lahum. A likeness was placed on someone else, and it was made to look like Isa was killed. Now, there was someone who actually was crucified. There was someone who died on the cross, but it wasn't Isa alayhi salam. Rather, Allah revealed to Isa and told Isa that He is going to raise him up onto Himself, i.e. the mission of Isa has not ended. It has only been postponed or is put forward for a later date. So he's raised up into the heavens, and the likeness is placed over somebody else. But what's the details about this? What can we learn about the details? So, in one narration, it was said that in the majlis with the Hawariyun, where the disciples of Isa were, Isa mentioned to them, or asked the disciples, who is going to take my shabah, take my resemblance, and for that person their reward will be Jannah. Their reward will be paradise. Who would take that shabah? And the younger one said, I will do it. And then Isa repeated again, who would take my shabah? And he repeated again. So the young shab, the young boy, was adamant that the resemblance was placed upon him, and it happened. And an angel came and raised up Isa upon himself. And this individual was the one who was eventually crucified. That is in one narration as to what happened. Now Isa being raised up to Allah, to the heavens, there was the prophecy that Allah's Messenger ﷺ has told us. Even Isa has informed us that he will return at a later date, and he will combat and fight the Dajjal. So there's one of the greatest fitna that will ever afflict mankind. All the Anbiya, all the prophets have been told the people that there was going to come the Dajjal, and Isa is going to be the one who will return on that day to battle and kill the Dajjal. Some people call him the Antichrist. And I guess maybe it makes sense to say Antichrist as in the opposite. So you have this person here misguiding mankind, and you have the opposite who's going to come and kill and destroy the Dajjal. And then we all know the events of the last day. We have Ya'juj and Ma'juj and all the rest of those events. But this is something that was going to happen in the future. But as for the story of Isa, this isn't a story where we mention how this prophet got old or got married and died. Actually, the story of Isa is yet to be concluded. Isa will eventually return, defeat the Dajjal, and then he will rule the earth. Just like Dawood and Sulaiman ruled the earth, he will rule the earth upon Islam, and he will submit to the rules of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just like he came and taught the rules of Musa alayhi salam and gave the Injil, when he returns, he will embody and teach the rules and enforce the rules of al-Islam. And he will break the cross, and he will break the symbol of Christianity, and he will defeat the ideas, the false ideas attributed to him by those who have been misguided. This is the final message. And also, not to forget, when that happens, then Isa will get married like all the Anbiya before and continue much like you see with, or much like we saw with Dawood and Sulaiman. This is the message, or this was the story of Isa alayhi salam. But there's a question that has to be answered. What is the question? Is Isa the son of Allah? Allah has most definitely told us, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ. Most definitely, those who have disbelieved, those who claim that Allah is the Masih, the Messiah, son of Mary. Allah has attributed this statement as being kufr. To attribute such a statement to Allah is disbelief. So Allah has made it clear from the message of al-Islam that that Isa is not Allah. Even the idea, what about the idea of the Trinity? Is Isa not Allah, but at the same time Allah in part of this holy union of the Trinity? Some describe it as being like water. Water, it can be gas, and it can be water, and it can be ice. I've heard some Christians explain it that way. Allah said exactly the same thing. He says, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ ثَلَاثَةٍ. Allah has those they have definitely disbelieved, those who say that Allah is one of three. So two instances Allah has mentioned that He has attributed disbelief to the idea that Allah is one of three, one of part of this union of three things. This is not the case, and this is not the truth at all. Allah is one, and that has always been the message of al-Islam. From, as we've seen from Adam alayhi salam and his children, from Nuh alayhi salam, and afterwards Ibrahim, and so on and so forth. They all had the exact same message. U'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. Worship Allah, you have no God besides Him. This is a simple message. This is a unique message, and it has always been that message. So this idea that somehow after Adam, after Nuh, after Ibrahim, Musa, Dawood, Sulaiman, Jeremiah, Zachariah, after all these Anbiya that have come, who never once mentioned Allah having children. All of a sudden, with the last and final messenger, Allah has children? Kalla, not at all. This is not the case. In fact, to suggest the idea that Allah has children is to suggest that Allah is created. Because having children is a created thing. That's what human beings, that's what we do. Animals do this. It's not something that's attributed and possibly could be even ascribed to the creator of the heavens and the earth. Allah is not like anything in creation. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Allah doesn't resemble anything whatsoever. So this is one of the reasons why Islam absolutely rejects the idea of the Trinity and absolutely rejects the idea that Isa alayhi salam is Allah or the son of Allah. And do you know who else rejects this idea? Isa himself. What does Isa say? Isa says, or Allah said in the Quran that Allah will ask Isa alayhi salam on the Day of Judgment, did you tell the people to worship you and your mother? SubhanAllah, look at that. Allah will ask Isa, because this is what was being said. This is what people did. They ended up worshipping Isa and worshipping his mother. Although not all Christians do that, but some of the Christians worship Mary as well. They even call her the mother of God. As if to say Allah has parents now, subhanAllah. So Allah will ask Isa, is that what you taught the people? And Isa will say, not at all. This is not the case. If I had said that, you would definitely know that. You know what's inside myself, I don't know what's inside yourself. You are the one who knows all things. So even Isa will make bara'ah. Even Isa will distance himself from such an idea, such a false narrative. This is the truth that Allah has given us and told us through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we see Conclusively, this is a false narrative. And to conclude, how else can we know this is false? What other evidence do you have that this is a false narrative? In the Bible itself, in the Injil or the Gospels that the Christians have in their hand and claim to be from Allah, even in that same book, there's mention of Isa making dua to Allah, prostrating to Allah, asking Allah for help and asking Allah for forgiveness. This is something that Isa himself mentioned in the Bible. So how can he do that to himself? How is Isa worshipping himself? It makes no sense. So we see conclusively that there is no narrative, there is no evidence to suggest that Isa is Allah or even the son of Allah. And there is no such thing as Allah having a son. لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ. Something in the surah we all know, Surah Ikhlas, Allah mentions He has not had children, nor was He Himself a child. He was not Himself born. And this is the absolute truth as it relates to Isa. Isa's final message was to worship Allah, return to Tawheed, and to give bashara, to give glad tidings of the very final message of Al-Islam, the coming of the final prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we will discuss in our next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.